sort of tie up a little bit from before and lead us into this. We're all living God's script. But when you're focused on the part of the script that's you and your role, it can be easy to think that that is the script for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, because we're like the center of the universe. You know. And that's not right. That's not true. So where I'm at is not supposed to be where you're at. And where you're at is not supposed to be where I'm at. We're all supposed to be where God has us. And that even includes the things we understand and the positions we hold about things that we understand. And knowing this gives us, it opens up the door to grace and forbearance and knowing that we're just, again, we're all exactly where we're supposed to be. So what I'm trying to say, if you're new to when we're fellowshipping together, you need to understand this is our heart is about freedom. For freedom, Christ has set us free. For free. This is not a theory. For freedom, Christ has set us free. You know, and we need to free ourselves. We need to free our minds. We need to free each other. Okay, so it's okay. So what I'm trying to tell you is okay. At least I'll speak for the core of us here, and know that there's a lot of people that every time we get together, people here for the first time. But you need to know this, that in our heart, our intent is this is a place of freedom. This is some place you can come and relax and be whoever you are. Believe whatever you currently understand. It's okay. We have people on all different sides of all kinds of issues right in this room, and people that we love, and we're all good with that. Why wouldn't we be? God's writing it, right? So this is a place that we hope to be a place of freedom for you, a place you can relax, a place there's no condemnation, there's no mockery, there's no looking down at, and just a place to be safe and a place to be at peace without ridicule and no line you have to toe. We all towed enough of those, right? And that's bondage. It's the opposite of freedom. And okay, so I'm going to talk to you, share with you. I think we're all, I get to speak for myself now, but all of us who come here, we're just sharing our journey, okay? And there's something about these three words here that help me grasp some things, where things sort of come together in my mind and the way God has worked in my heart and my mind. I spent my childhood in a system and I embraced it for a long time where I viewed God being in charge and being God in a sense that He was writing my life and the life of the world as it went along. Day by day, He's writing this. People, and you can hear people acknowledging to some degree God's control and sovereignty, We know everything happens for a reason, and, people, there's some sense in mankind that he knows he has a creator and somehow, he's somehow in charge. But I viewed it, whether it was really being communicated that way to me or not, I don't know. But I viewed that God was actively writing my life every day. And everybody else in the world. But the way He was writing was that He was being influenced what to write next, waiting to see what we would do next.
Yeah.
So if I chose to get in the center of His will, then He would write my day accordingly, or the rest of the world. So He's He's actively writing day by day the course of the world as he responds to how the world responds to him. And that was, in my view, how God was mainly different than us. And that he forms his purpose on an ongoing basis and changes it in response to ours. That's a really tough place to be. Because as much as it seems like God's being God in the middle of all that, somehow it really all falls back on us. And so if this morning, when I wake up, if I can get in tune with him, and get in line with him, and find his perfect will for today, and I love Mike Owens. And I love his answer to what's the will of God. And if you really want to know what the will of God is, just look around.
Yep.
Because you're right in the middle of it. Didn't matter how you woke up this morning, don't matter what you're thinking about, doesn't matter. God's will is moving on. And you're right in the middle of it.
Doesn't matter which prison you're in.
Because I agonized from a little boy. Please let me be in the middle of your will. And there were all these shades, but you wanted to get somehow in the middle of it. Not realizing that that's where I've always lived.
Yep.
Perfectly in the middle of God's will. It takes all the try out. It takes all the do out. It takes all the effort out. It takes all the responsibility. And then we just get to bask in him. And he becomes the center of everything instead of us being the center of things. And we looked at the verse earlier. And the verse that really drove this truth home. So I would used to, even when I began to embrace that God was absolutely sovereign. In fact, I actually heard myself say it a paragraph or two ago when I was talking. But when I first started seeing the sovereignty of God in the scriptures, and I'll be honest with you, I always wanted a God that was sovereign. From a little boy. I would tell him, if you just tell me what to do, I would do that. No matter what it was. If you just let me know. And I just wish he would just stop being so hard to get a hold of and tell me what he wanted me to do with my life. You know, step up. I want a God who would step up and really be God. And I used to read Calvinist books, you know, and sometimes my heart would soar because I was like, oh man, do I like this God. I really like this God. Well, until we got a little further. And I found this God don't like people. He loves some people, hates the rest of the people. But I would still find myself reading Arthur Pink or different people, and I'm like, I love this, I want this God. And then God took me on this journey that brought me to this place. And then still I would say, and again, I realize I said it a little earlier in this talk, that God is writing our lives. It's not true. God is not writing your life. God is not writing the world's direction.
Amen.
It's as sure and as anchored as God is. There's no plan B or C or D. There's no alteration. His will is not his want. When God wills all men to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth, this is not a want.
Yeah.
I didn't get that.
It's not.
Did you try again?
We will try again.
Siri literally said, I didn't get that.
Exactly. We didn't even get that.
Literally, I didn't get that. Can you try again?
Try again.
let's back up then. So, and to come to a place where, who will have all men to be saved. You know, we think it says, who wants everybody to be saved. Oh, I just wish it would happen. Now I'm just going to keep working and hope they make the right choice. No, who will. Determination. Decree. This is because he executes his will with perfection, and who can stay his hand? Who can change what he's decided to do? So the fact is, Psalm 139:16, all of my days were written in your book. They were formed when there was not one of them. So, God's not writing your life. God's not writing the lives of people around you. God's not writing the events of the world as they unfold, or maybe even the day before. It's, he pre-wrote your life. He pre-wrote the story. That's how we know the outcome. It's already determined. It was already written. So this God who was day by day determining what was going to happen, instead it was already written. Isaiah 46:9-10 says, I am God. I am El. I'm in charge. Thank you. I needed somebody in charge. We're a mess on our own. I am El, and there is none else. I am God, and there's none like me. Declaring the end from the beginning. From ancient times, the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all. Mark was good at that, wasn't he? All. I will do all my pleasure. In the evening and the morning of the first day, right? And God said, it's good. It's good. God likes what he's doing. He's pleased with what he's doing. He's pleased with what he's wrote. It may not look like it in the middle of it all, right? Just like our kids. They weren't always pleased with our parenthood, you know, that was taking them somewhere. But it was all crafted and designed. Acts 15:18, known to God are all. Known to God are all his ways. From the beginning. God doesn't just know what he's doing today. He's so smart, he knows exactly what he's going to do today. No, he's so smart from the beginning. He knew everything he was going to do. There's confidence. There's a God who's got it all figured out. He's got a logos. He's got a plan. And the plan was in the beginning, not along the way. It always was. And then I had another idea about God writing. And, oh yeah, I told you. Wow. Oh my goodness. I told you I couldn't do it.
We knew what you meant.
Yeah, well thank you. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was trying. Steve Martin and I was doing a video not long ago on we have a little freedom journey, and then I actually brought this point up, and then I'm in the middle of it and I'm trying to distinguish between writing and writing, and then I realized I can't even spell anymore.
You need to run it through your editors first.
No, yeah. Yeah, by the way, Andre, he makes me readable, by the way. I write, and I give it to Andy, and then Andy says, are you trying to say? I said, that's it. That's it. That's what I'm trying to say. So another idea we have here that I had, and maybe you were with me, I thought God was in charge day by day. He knew what he was doing day by day. But the other thing I thought that God was doing is I thought he had a book. And he was writing every day, not only his plan, but he was writing my sins down. So not only day by day was he writing his will, but day by day he was keeping record. I grew up from a little boy knowing this. And the altar call came, and I got to see if I can get him to tear those pages out, or hope he had a big eraser. Or at the end of the day, really, isn't that when it is? You lay your head on the pillow at night, and you see if God will erase what he wrote that day. Sometimes I forget how hard that was. It's been so long since I've been free. It's hard to live each day with this condemnation, and God's busy writing, and who he really is Santa Claus. That's who we really believe in, because it's not in the scriptures. What's he doing? I can't even think of how the song goes. He's making a list.
Checking it twice.
Checking it twice. He's going to find out who's not here nice. Santa Claus. And for me, in my Christianity, he came every night. And then at the end, I think of everything I could try to think of to say, okay, please take that one off, and take that one off. And then if I forgot any, please take those off. And then my slate got clean. Just to wake up tomorrow morning, do it again. And here it all comes together. And then you talk about those times when you're reading the scriptures, and yet you read in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 when Paul talks about love. It gets a little cloudy in some versions. And then some versions just nail it right on through to you so you can get it. So like I said, it's a little fuzzy and obscure, but here's a great example. The Holman Christian Standard Bible says, love does not keep a record of wrongs. What? And God is what? God is love. He doesn't have a loving attribute. He is.
Right.
This is what he is.
Yep.
And by the way, if you've ever experienced love of any kind, it's a taste of who he is. He is love. And love does not keep a record of wrongs. It doesn't write it down. And I thought he was writing here when really he was already written. And then I thought he was writing here. And he is not keeping a record. And whatever you think judgment is, it has to line up with the love of God. And whatever you think judgment is, it has to line up with a pre-written plan that you're simply living out. And whatever you think judgment is, and the books were open. Oh my God, I was afraid that was going to happen. That those books were going to be open. Well, I know what those books don't have. They don't have any records of wrongs. Now, they do contain some records. Now, I don't profess to know when the books in plural are open, what all they are. I'm pretty sure I know what one of them is. It's the books of the Bible. And Paul says, in the day when God shall judge the secrets of men according to my gospel. So if there's going to be a judgment, the epistles of Paul are going to be there. And they are epistles about what? Love and grace. And where sin abounds, grace does much more abound. This is going to be a good judgment, by the way, if that's what God's going to use as a standard. Okay? But what other kind of books could be there? Well, I'm going to suggest to you not only the scriptures are there, but all your days that were written before there. Everything he already wrote is written down in his book. Well, that'd be a good book to be open. And you know what it says? It says, I did all that. And the answer to this writing is this pre-written. And the answer to this writing is we got the wrong word. And I was afraid I was going to stand before God and all my sins that were written. See, my theology was This Is Your Life by Jack Chick. And when you die, we're all going to sit down and watch a movie of all of our lives. You've seen that, right? That track? Whew. But instead, you know what God's going to do with sin? He's not writing sin. He is going to right sin. And there's a writing. And you know, I love this justification. Justification. This righteousness, declared righteous, constituted righteous. God's going to show us one day. Isaiah said that I create evil. I create darkness. I create light. I, the Lord, I do all this stuff. And if God's pre-written your life, it includes everything that ever happened in your life. And one day, all the things that look like they were wrong, God's going to show how He wrote them that they're right. Calvary's a great example of that. It's the most evil, horrid, wicked event of human history. And it was perfect.
Yep.
It was right. It was the right thing to do. You see it in Joseph's life, right? His brothers, they hate him, sell him into slavery, they put him in the pit and make the story up and then eventually sell him into slavery. And you know what? Even though they intended to be wrong, it was all right. And it ended up in salvation, And one day, God's going to justify. I love the verse in Romans that you will be justified. Paul said that God will be justified in the day in which He's judged. Now there's a judgment I never heard about when I grew up, that God's going to be judged. I believe the greatest judgment of all time is the judgment of God. And He's called on record. Don't you have those questions? Why?
Yeah.
Why, for crying out loud, why did all this have to happen? Isn't that the great, when you're talking to people, they want to talk about the abuse of children and people dying and sickness and cancer and sin. God's in charge? Why? Why did all this happen? God's got all, and it's going to be awesome when God's going to explain why He wrote everything the way He did, and it'll all be righteous.
Yeah.
It'll all be right. It'll all be good. And we'll look back and say, man, what a glorious story that is. How beautiful is God's story. And so that it ends up, so what we know something. Here's the problem we have with justification, right? And judgment. is somehow we think of judgment. We're Westerners, so really the only thing we know about judgment is and a judge and a courtroom. It's all about punishment. Like if you get, no matter what kind of trouble you get in, there's a punishment, and you're going to have to pay. And if you go to court and if you've done something really bad, you're going to prison. The American judicial system, the Western judicial system, is about punishment. You know, you do the crime, you pay the time, right? And divine justice and divine justice, or did I just say that, is about fixing things. It's about restoration. It's about making things right. Everything's wrong. Everything's broken. Everything's a disaster. Don't we want it all fixed? Don't we want it all corrected? Don't we want it all made right? Isn't that what we want? You know? So no wonder. You know, when you read about the judgment of God in the Bible, so many passages that you know, people are praising God for His judgment. You know? Instead of this awful, terrible thing that's going to happen, you're going to live your life, and you're doing a crappy job at it, and you're failing, and you're sinning, and now you're going to stand before the holy, righteous God. And let me tell you, it's not going to be pretty. Now, that's not the way I used to preach it. You know, preach on the street and say, "You're going to hell! And your mama's going to hell! You better repent. You're going to stand before God one day. And it's not going to be a pretty sight. You may avoid Him now." That's the way I used to street.
Wow.
That was scary.
I had a lot of practice on the street.
Scared him out there.
But you know what?
Outside.
If you realize that judgment is fixing stuff. You hear about God's going to come and judge the earth. That means injustice is going to be made just. And you're like, come, hurry up and get this done. Yes. So what I used to be concerned about, God already wrote. And what I used to be concerned about that I'm going to stand before Him, I'm going to stand before Him, and He wrote already. I'm not concerned about sin. He wrote what I've done in my life. And He's going to fix it all. And He's going to fix everyone I know, and everyone you know, and everyone we don't know. And He's going to fix all the world and all the world's problems. And so there's a difference between something being written and something writing going on, and then one day God's going to correct it all.
Whoa.